Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Silver's Talk Show. That's basically what this video is going to be. As you may or may not know, there were some patch notes released last night for the Owlbear server, which is their secondary test server, which you can access. It's the one I'm on right now if you wanted to. But the patch notes were so good that I feel like I have to talk about them a little bit. Because there's been a lot of negativity lately surrounding broken things in the game and scaling and all that stuff. And I agree with the fact that scaling was dumb in campaign zones. And guess what? It's being removed from campaign zones! Finally! You won't have to be scaled whenever you're doing Sherendar that you've done 9 million times. Alright, so that's probably the most important thing. They did announce that in their Q&A stream before, and in the recap as well, the forum post they talked about that. But that's the main thing. The second main thing is that the health of all enemies, including bosses, has been reduced by 10%. Like, literally the health of every single thing in the game that can hit you has been reduced by 10%. So, the fact that scaling doesn't exist, health reduction means that older zones are going to be even easier, and the dungeons should also be pretty easier too. 10% easier, in fact. Except, all that's great and dandy, but then they also added on the fact that enchantments and runestones had their item level and stats doubled, which is going to really value up Radiance and Empowered Runestones, I think. Because they're already the best, so... And this is just going to make them even bester. That's a word. And the challenge campaigns have been renamed to Legacy campaigns because, as you can imagine, the fact that level scaling is gone now means that the campaigns aren't much of a challenge anymore, so... Everything else is still the same, they all still work the same, and there's just a different name. Oh, I forgot one thing! Enchantments are affected less by level scaling, and gear is affected more. Now, I can't say yet how that's going to affect stats in dungeons, because remember that scaling does still exist in dungeons, and that's something that I'm okay with, because I don't think you should be able to blast through a dungeon in 5 minutes. So yeah, enchantments are going to be even more relevant, which is good, because they were kind of devalued since upgrading them just scaled them back down, you know, all that jazz. Okay, so that's everything from the stream recap. Let's move somewhere else because I don't really want to be here anymore. Okay, this isn't exactly where I normally do it, but I feel like it's a good place. As a lot of you know, there's been some frustration with the Expedition quest line, and since that was changed where you had to buy an orb with the chaotic etching from the Rune Master before you could get rewards from the actual runes that you put in, There's been a lot of confusion about that, and I still see people asking every single day why they're not getting rewards. I don't think it was communicated the best way. What I would have done is send a mail to everybody who's level 80 in the entire game, saying, hey, this is how expeditions work now. It wouldn't have completely eliminated all of those questions and confusion, but it would have really helped a lot more, because there's actually a lot of people who don't pay attention to social media in Neverwinter, who don't read the patch notes, a lot more than you think. Like, I would venture to say the majority of the player base does not pay attention to any of those things. I mean, I have no basis for that statistic, but it's what it really feels like whenever I'm interacting with people. So that being said, back on topic, the chaotic etching that you get to complete that quest so that you can get rewards from the expedition chest, you can't destroy it anymore, so that's what I was getting at. You can't destroy the chaotic etching anymore, so as long as it's in your inventory, you're able to complete the quest. And if you don't know to complete the quest with it, now you do. Tell your friends, tell everyone, because I'm tired of listening to people ask me that question. Also, regarding expeditions, there is a change that I think a lot of you are going to like, and that is Grave Masters. If you've done enough expeditions, you've probably run into the room where there's like 3 or 4 Grave Masters and they all spawn like 6 mobs, and then it's just like a giant massacre of death. The average groups and below average groups had a lot of trouble with that area, and they'd made it so that only 1 Grave Master can spawn in an encounter, but if you have 5 players, there's some exceptions to that, so there can be more than 1 if you have a full group. But if you're doing like a 1, 2, 3, or 4 person expedition, you're not going to have to deal with that giant flaming massacre of death room. Okay, back to scaling a little bit because I forgot to talk about strongholds. Strongholds are not going to be scaled anymore, but the stronghold map itself is going to be raised to level 80. So that means that before you get to level 80, it's going to be a dangerous world. Same thing as level 70. how it was before, and if you were a new player and you went out there into the stronghold, you were basically dead if you interacted with anything, but that's how it's going to be just level 80 now. Okay, next up, they fixed fishing so that you can actually fish now. I will demonstrate it in like 5 minutes. It's going to take me like 5 minutes to get there because I don't have VIP. Okay, so we're finally at the fishing spot. It took like 9 years to load an instance because nobody's here. And I like how my vanity pet is just swimming along with me. That's kind of cute. I can't decide if it's swimming or if it's like drowning. It might, same difference. Alright, it looks like I might have lied and fishing's not fixed after all. Because you can see the bar going up and then going down. Yeah, fishing is not fixed. Cancel that. Maybe it'll be fixed in the next update to the Owlbear server. Because remember, Owlbear is not the version that's going to go live next. It goes to Owlbear first, because it's their secondary server. It's not the next version that's going to go live. So after that, it'll probably be pulled from Owlbear, worked on some, and then it'll be pushed to Mimic. And then Mimic is the next version that's going to go live. And I really hope you can't hear the rain right now because it's really loud. Okay, now that we're back in our comfortable chair back in the office, and we've determined that fishing is in fact still broken, let's move on. We're going to talk about classes a little bit because the majority of the classes had at least a few changes, and I'm sure you all want to know about it because why wouldn't you? Alright, we're going to start off with Barbarian, and they fixed an issue where the rage meter depletes in a weird manner whenever you're using Battle Rage or Unstoppable. Okay, and an issue I know at least a lot of people in my guild were concerned with. The Daily Power Crescendo now actually grants control immunity whenever you're using it. They also fixed an issue where Spinning Strike wasn't properly granting control immunity from all directions. It was only a 200-degree arc instead of, behind you, and that was fixed now. And a sad fix, but one that was needed, was Sentinel Slash doesn't grant more action points than it was supposed to. And they also fixed the feat Crushing Advance. It now actually modifies Savage Advance after you use Unstoppable. Now, for Cleric, they've actually increased the damage of a lot of stuff for Cleric, which is really awesome. The only changes were to the Arbiter Paragon, so we're going to talk about that for a bit. The Sacred Flame at will has 70 magnitude up from 65, so it does a little bit more damage, which is nice. To make things easier for leveling Clerics, you unlock Channel Divinity in the Divinity meter at level 5, which is when you receive your first Divinity spending encounter power, because it really doesn't make sense to unlock Divinity after you already have a Divinity power, because that's kind of dumb, but that's fixed now. Daunting Light was giving 2 stacks of Burning Judgment when it is not supposed to do that, so they fixed that, and it doesn't do that anymore. If you're using the Focused Light feat, that's the one that enhances Daunting Light after you use Forge Master's Flame. It increases the damage to 450 magnitude instead of 400, so that's another damage increase. And they've also made the Perfect Balance feat a little bit more attainable. I still don't like it. I still don't think it's nearly as good as Angel of Death, but it now requires 4 stacks of the Burning and Radiant Shift instead of 6, so it's somewhat more doable, just not nearly as good in my opinion. Now you have Lance of Faith, your good boy Lance of Faith, best at will ever, does more damage also, 80 magnitude instead of 75. And Forge Master's Flame, 650 magnitude instead of 600, so that's a biggin. The Forge Masters has had a lot of damage modifications over the course of Mod 16. It started off being ridiculously strong, and then they nerfed it. And then they unnerfed it again. They nerfed it again, and now they're giving it more damage back. And my LED lighting that I have around my desk just randomly decided to start cycling through the rainbow. So it looks like I'm having a disco party in here because I think the battery in my remote is dead. Okay, Prophecy of Doom. You have more of a reason to use it now. Well, a little bit. Because it had the duration extended to 12 seconds instead of 10 seconds, and a reduced cooldown to 26 seconds instead of 30 seconds. So, that means you're able to store more damage in there before it, does the whole kaboom thing, and you can do it more often too. Okay, this one is probably the best thing ever. Cue drumroll thing, but whenever you're using Channel Divinity on the Arbiter Paragon, you're going to get more Divinity. The base amount that you restore whenever you use Channel Divinity has been increased. The overtime restoration, the passive one, and then also the effect of Consuming Judgment. All that does more. So you should, in theory, have less issues with Divinity. I can't say the same for Devout, though, which is sad. But that's another topic. However, to counteract this, they've increased the Divinity cost of a couple of powers by just a little bit. The Daunting Light has been increased to 200 instead of 180, and Searing Javelin has been increased to 240, up from 220. So in theory, I have not tested this out yet, but in theory, it should not be noticeable at all. It should still be the same, because they increase divinity restoration, but also increase the cost, so you probably shouldn't notice a whole lot, assuming it works correctly. But what do I know? Alright, since we were talking about divinity, let's talk about Paladin for like 0.2 seconds. You know that thing I said with Cleric and unlocking divinity earlier? Like, whenever you unlock your first divinity power, because it makes sense. They did that for Paladin too, so Paladins unlock channel divinity and the divinity meter. Oh, I can speak English. At level 8! There was a bunch of issues with fighters not being able to hit targets that were standing on slopes or uneven terrain, and that was fixed with Heavy Slash and Reeve, two of the Atwills. Alright, in the Dreadnought Paragon, that's the DPS Paragon for those of you who are uninformed. They fixed Seath a little bit, it doesn't cause the camera to shake anymore, and they also changed the visual effects a little bit. If you're using the feat Prepared Slam, Tremor and Onslaught now actually benefit from this feat, and the feat Heavier Slash can't proc off of Heavy Slash itself, so you know, you can't spam Heavy Slash to get the Heavier Slash feat. Okay, if you're using the Weight of Vengeance feat, it decreases the cooldown of Anvil of Doom by 4 seconds, in addition to what it already did. And last but not least, certainly not least, the class mechanic Vengeance, the one that gives you bonus damage whenever you have over 50% of your Vengeance meter, you know, instead of 10% bonus damage, it now grants 20% bonus damage. So if you have a Vengeance meter that's more than half full, you're getting an extra 10% damage. You're welcome. I act like I did that. I didn't even have anything to do with it. I don't even play fighter anymore. Alright, in the Vanguard Paragon, if you hit something with Enforced Threat and has a little bit of a more obvious visual effect so that you can tell in combat which targets are affected by it, and the Perfect Block feat can't affect the cooldown of Determination anymore. The other tank powers, it has to be the same as the other tank powers. Alright guys, it's time for Ranger, my least favorite class, and the one that's not getting a whole lot of love. This is the class that does the shooty with the arrows, okay? Just in case you didn't know. They fixed a typo. I feel like I have to point that out because I do that a lot on my channel, but they fixed a typo. You're welcome. They adjusted the tooltips and descriptions of a lot of different feats and powers so that it makes more sense and actually clarifies what it does, because, you know, that's a good thing. They changed plant growth to use weak grasping roots. I don't know if it used strong ones before, but it uses weak ones now. The plants died, they shriveled up and died in some drought or something, so they use weak roots now, because that's all they have left. Hey, if you're using the Weapon Mastery feat for some reason, in case, you know, you don't have 90,000 critical strike, it gives you 5% crit chance instead of 2.5, so they doubled the effectiveness of it. But crit is so easy to come by that, I don't really know why anyone would use that, unless it goes outside of the 50% cap, which I'm not sure about, but I wouldn't think it does. I don't think it does. The magnitude of Split the Sky has been increased. It's not as useless anymore. On to the Rogue Thief class that likes to go invisible and stuff. They didn't really change anything with this class other than changing how tooltips display stuff for 2 things. So I'm not going to bother talking about it because it's very minimal and I already wasted too much time. Alright, on to the Warlick class. I feel like that's how some people say it with an accent, but to me it just sounds funny. So if you're using Hand of Blight, the visual effects work properly, but the first cast takes a little bit longer to fire, but has its magnitude increased to make up for it, so it's basically still the same. Also, you can't use Warlock's Bargain anymore if you're below 20% health, which makes a whole lot of sense because Warlock's Bargain takes 20% of your health, so you're basically just killing yourself to cleanse your team, which, by the way, it still doesn't cleanse yourself, which I think is, I'm not sure if it's intended or not, but I don't like it. Because not being able to cleanse myself sucks. Warlocks have the advantage of being able to cleanse their entire party at once, except themselves. Which I don't know if that's an intended weakness because of how good the other part of the power is, being able to cleanse everyone at once, but it's annoying. They swapped around the way you unlock some powers in the Soul Weaver Paragon, just so that you have earlier access to healing, and the powers affected are Essence Defiler and Pillar of Power. And they also updated the Soul Pact tooltip to clarify its functionality. They did that to a whole lot of stuff. And they also changed a lot of tooltips in a lot of classes to show the range of their effects that weren't being shown before. So now you can, like, read and stuff. Alright, here's a good one. They fixed HP boons. Hold on, let me see if it's actually true. Wow, would you look at that? They did actually fix HP boons. You want to know how I know? I have 557k HP right now, but I don't have the HP guild boon because this is the Albert server and there's like no guilds here. So if I add 32k to that, I end up with really close to 600k, which is what I would have had on live if the HP boons worked. So by the power of mathematics, I can infer that it does actually work. Or I could just retrain them to verify, but okay. Companions had a bunch of changes, not really a whole bunch, but the companions that give bonus currency, or that are supposed to give bonus currency, now actually do that. So that's like a Wiggins intern, the one that gives bonus chult currency that I forget the name of, or was it Omu currency, or both? Like, you know what I'm talking about? The ones that release at the beginning of campaigns as a cash grab, so that if you want to complete the campaign faster, you just buy the companion to get bonus currency. Okay, moving on. Also, companions that give crit severity now actually work, which is nice. They also fixed a handful of companions that weren't showing the proper bonuses. By the way, guys, Tiamat has returned to the list of queues, and they've also fixed it, supposedly. I don't have 24 other people to go test it, but the Legion Devils and the word that I can't pronounce that a lot of people make fun of me for pronouncing wrong, which is the Arenes. They deal less damage, and Tiamat's heads have more health. But I wonder how much more health they gave them, because everything was reduced by 10%. Every enemy had their health reduced by 10%, so I wonder how much more health they actually have. Also, in Demogorgon, he doesn't back away from the tank randomly, because that was dumb. It's like he got scared and wanted to run away, but realized he had nowhere to run to, and then just turned around and sadly continued the fight for his own demise. Okay. Also, in Svardborg, Permafrost is considered level 70 for combat purposes. I'm not sure if it was level 80 before and was doing a lot of extra damage, but that's that. Also, the Manticores had their health reduced, and Storvald has had his health increased. The regular Svardborg is also in the intermediate queue now. To have fun with that. Here's some more general stuff. In Barovia, they fixed the minor heroic encounters, spawning super ridiculously overpowered enemies, because that was also really dumb. And in general, enemies aggro on players up to 20 levels above them instead of 7. Now, this is a change that I'm not entirely sure about, because I could understand it being 10, because you're not going to be scaled in level 70 content anymore. So that means that, assuming it was still 7, you could run around all 70 content and nothing would aggro you, and that's pretty much every single campaign. So I would understand 10. Now 20 makes it so that level 60 enemies will aggro you right now. But I don't know if I said this already, but all the events that exist in the game that scale you to level 60 are going to scale you to level 40 now instead. However, I think it says it's not yet implemented, so maybe that 20 was a temporary solution so that whenever you're in an event, the 40-60 difference will still aggro the mobs to you or something? I don't know. Take that with a grain of salt. That's just my off the top of my head guess. But yeah, basically it means Stuffer's gonna aggro you at lower levels. Okay, polar bears have their snowy whiteness back. That is the most important part of these patch notes. Have a good day. I'm just kidding. They're not brown anymore. The polar bears, they're alive once again. Okay, here's something I know you guys are gonna really like. And I'm not just saying that. The seasonal artifact gear from Call to Arms and Tales of Old events now scales up to the equivalent of item level 980. This means that it's scaled up to level 80 tier of weapons and stuff. That makes it relevant again. Yay! Alright, here's something, to counteract that, here's something I know some of you are going to be upset about. They reduced the AP gain of the Envenomed Storyteller's Journal. I don't know what it was before, but the green one does 4 AP every second now. I feel like it was 12.5 or something on live. Not 100% sure, but it was nerfed a pretty decent amount. Okay, yes, we are still going, and if you're still listening to this video, I am very impressed. And if you are still listening, tell me in the comments how the weather is where you are, because today it was so hot. It was like 90 degrees or something like that, and now it's storming. Okay, empowered runestones now actually state that their HP gain does not apply to augments. Because as we all knew, or know, or didn't know, I guess, if you put HP on an augment, it does not share. Everything except HP shares. Unless you have an augment that has HP as one of its stat bonuses. In that case, you'll get some HP, but it won't be dependent on the items and the runestones that you have on it. Okay, Tenebrous enchantments, or Tenebrous enchantments, however you pronounce it. They should actually work now, and display their percentage values properly in the tooltip. So we shall see. I have some in my inventory. It says 1%, 1% at rank 8. and if I refine it, 2%, 2%. But if I put it on my gear, is it still broken? Timeout. We must do this for science. Alright, if it's equipped and you look at it like this, it still says 8% and 8%. Alright, so I still don't know which one it actually is. I would assume 1%, because if you rank this up to rank 15 or whatever, and 15% for 15% chance, that's kind of ridiculous. But it still displays incorrectly if you hover over your gear. Just so y'all know. Okay, moving on. They fixed negation and shadowclad enchantments to actually show the correct damage resistance numbers. And they actually defend more too, because they fixed the whole calculation for it, so it should actually be more effective now. I don't think I have a negation enchantment on me anymore. 'Tis a sad day. Alright, the insignias, vigor, and leeching. The ones that you can't get anymore, supposedly, you actually can't get them anymore. They still dropped in Mon 16 from vendors and rewards and stuff, and then you could exchange them for whatever you wanted and it wouldn't be bound, yada yada yada. Okay, you can't get them anymore, move on. Okay, so a couple of profession fixes. Iron nails can properly be produced as level 16 blacksmithing or armorsmithing. I think that is something that profession people have been complaining about for months. But I'm not 100% sure because I don't really pay a whole lot of attention to professions. Alright, if you're exchanging seals of the crown, you can actually buy them in bulk now. I can actually exchange them now because I was holding off on that because I didn't feel like going through 1200 seals individually on multiple characters, but now you can buy in bulk, so now I can exchange them and buy nothing because I don't have anything useful to buy, so maybe I just won't exchange them at all. As far as the Zen market goes, they removed some of the older key bundles like the Dark Magic one, the one from Barovia and stuff, the older ones that had stuff that wasn't really relevant anymore. As far as I know, the one that gave the Pilgrim gear is still available to purchase on the live server, which is interesting because Pilgrim gear is really bad now. Don't worry guys, there's still a whole lot more for me to go through, and I'm not even saying everything because I'm only touching on the stuff that I think is actually important, which is a majority of the stuff, because these are some really good patch notes, but not everything. Alright, companions. We all know it's super annoying if you have two different ranks of the same companion, it will use the low one and you can't replace it with a higher rank, so you have this useless higher rank companion, and instead you have to waste AD or companion tokens upgrading the lower ranked one. Well, not anymore! If you have a higher ranked companion version of one that you already have, it prompts you and says that it's going to delete the lower ranked one. Also, if you inspect an unbound companion, it now actually shows the powers that it's going to have, which is great. As an example, I have this Bulette pup here that I got from Cradle earlier today, and as you can see, it tells you what category it is, the enhancement power it has, and the player power that you can choose, and the slot that it is, the defense. And then if you swap over, it has the same thing. It shows the powers. You can see that it's an augment, and you can see its base stats. So that is amazing. Praise the RNGesus. Alright, as you may or may not have noticed, if you've attempted to put jewels or anything into your gear, you couldn't see it after you put it on. Like, the modification thing wouldn't actually show you what was on it, so there was no way to know if you actually had a modification on a piece of gear or not, unless you have a really decent memory, which I don't. So as you can see now, you can see that I have maximum HP as my modification on my chest piece, and power on my gloves, so hooray! And something that I thought was really annoying, going back to companions for a second, if you hovered over your companion gear, it would try to compare it to gear that you already own. Which doesn't make any sense because it's companion gear, not player gear. And now that's gone, so you don't have to deal with this annoying extra window that would show up over here, and you can actually see stuff now. Okay, another profession thing, because I'm not reading any of this in order, why would I? This is something else that I know a lot of profession people were upset about, but now you can convert high quality profession resources into normal quality resources so that you can use them in masterwork quests. Okay, just a couple last little things. They fixed a bunch of audio issues, the most noticeable of which is the vanity pets. If you might not know, but some of them were ridiculously loud. Specifically the Slith, the one that I can't pronounce, of course, because why would anything be easy to pronounce in this game? But it was super loud, and it's now not super loud. Alright, and that is actually everything. This video ended up being way longer than I wanted. Thanks for listening to my talk show, or whatever you happen to do to it, I don't know. If you watched it, I feel bad for you, because nothing really happened on the screen. This is just sort of podcast placeholder. Now, remember that this patch is not live yet, and probably won't go live for a couple of weeks at least. My guess is it will either be next Thursday or the Thursday after that. because, like I said before, Mimic is the next game version, whereas Owlbear is sort of a testing they use whenever something's not ready to go live yet, but they still want people to be able to test it. All in all, this patch is really great, and I'm very happy that things are starting to turn around. It looks like a lot of things are getting fixed that were big issues. Other than fishing is still broken. This might be one of my favorite patches in the history of patches. Tell me in the comments what your favorite patch was in Neverwinter, if you can remember. Make sure if you subscribe, that was a sentence, if you want to see more videos and stuff like this. And I have a whole lot of fun videos planned, I just need time to do them. I've already made all the thumbnails because I'm excited and I like the way my new thumbnails are gonna look. So yeah, okay, bye, see you later.